The Holy Father sends a Christmas message to Middle East Christians. We speak with our Alan Holdren for the latest. North Korea reboots after a possible cyber attack on its computer networks. New York's mayor honors 2 fallen officers with a moment of silence while fending off criticism. And caught on camera, the hidden lives of some wild creatures. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, December 23rd, 2014. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Suzanne LaFranchi in for Brian Patrick. Looking at your news now. Police in New York are on heightened alert this week amid tension over the shooting of 2 officers. Officials have announced tightened security for the New Year's Eve ball drop in Times Square. Wyatt Goolsby joins us with the latest. Wyatt.
Suzanne, law enforcement says it's a result of ongoing threats against police officers. Amid a backdrop of criticism, New York's mayor led a moment of silence for the fallen officers earlier this afternoon.
So now bow our heads in memory of Officer Ramos and Officer Liu.
A time for reflection today in honor of 2 officers, Rafael Ramos and Wenjin Liu. Earlier in the day, Mayor Bill de Blasio and his wife visited a makeshift memorial in Brooklyn where the 2 officers were ambushed and killed in their patrol car Saturday. Last night, several of the emergency first responders talked about the chaos that day.
It was scarring, you know what I mean? Like, to see 2 police officers that way, it affected me in so many different ways.
The officers were shot by Ismail Brinsley, whose family says the man had a troubled past. Brinsley posted online that his shooting was in retaliation for the police deaths of Eric Gardner and Michael Brown. Meanwhile, the mayor has been accused by some within the police ranks of creating mistrust between law enforcement and the community. De Blasio has asked everyone to put aside protests over law enforcement's actions for the time being out of respect for the fallen officers. Officer Liu's widow briefly emerged from her home on Monday evening in tears, but thankful to the police and the community.
This is a difficult time for both of our families, but we will stand together and get through this together. Thank you.
Last night, organizers of the Silent Walk for Solidarity said they wanted to focus on justice for all races, offering prayers and support. A similar message offered a day after the attacks by Cardinal Timothy Dolan on Sunday, looking ahead to Christmas and citing the birth of Christ as a sign of hope.
Light trumps darkness. Hope beats despair. Grace wins out over sin. Love defeats hate. Life conquers death.
And on Monday, the daughter of Eric Gardner, the man who died from a police chokehold in Staten Island this July, visited the memorial site. She offered her prayers and condolences and said their family stands with the officers' families. Suzanne?
Such a tragic story. Thank you very much, Wyatt. A Staten Island Republican congressman pleads guilty to tax evasion charges. Now his future in the House is up in the air. Michael Grimm was charged with hiding more than $1 million in sales and wages while running a health food restaurant. In today's plea, Grimm avoids a trial. He'll be sentenced in June. Prosecutors want 24 to 30 months in prison. It remains unclear if Grimm will keep his spot in Congress, resign, or be forced out by leadership with today's guilty plea. Now, some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. The Holy Father releases a Christmas letter sending consolation to Christians in the Middle East. He says he's keenly aware of their suffering, but their very presence in the region bears witness to Jesus. He tells them, "Your very presence is precious for the Middle East. You are a small flock, but one with a great responsibility in the land where Christianity was born and first spread." He said they are like leaven, and their cooperation with other religions is a sign of the kingdom of God. Alan Holdren joins us now to talk more about the Holy Father's Christmas preparations. Alan, you're in contact with some Iraqis to find out the response to the Pope's message. What are they saying?
Well, they really felt the Pope's closeness, Suzanne. This was the reason for the letter. The Pope wanted to tell them that he was close to them and also that he's praying for them. And they really felt that. I spoke with one priest who was on his way. He's here in Rome at the moment working, but he was on his way to Finland to be with refugees that now live there. And he said that this was really what the Holy Father, it's his job. He was doing his job to let them know that they're within the fold and that they're loved. They really need this right now, he said, especially given the violence that continues and the refugees that continue to leave the country.
Yesterday, the Pope delivered a Christmas message to Vatican leaders. Some media thought it was a takedown of the Curia. What are your thoughts?
Well, the Pope invited them to greater communion and invited them to go to confession before Christmas, and he asked them to examine their consciences. That for a Pope to do that to his Curia, to ask them to live out their faith, it seems like a fairly normal thing. I spoke with people around the Vatican today, and they said the same thing. They didn't take it as an offense. They took it as their leader inviting them to take part in the sacraments ahead of one of the biggest celebrations in the Catholic Church and in Christianity. So there were media that took a certain angle on it, that they were thinking that this was offensive. I spoke with other Vatican employees as well that met with the Pope after that meeting with the Curia, and they got the same sort of a speech from the Holy Father, and they're going to confession today.
Christmas is around the corner. How will the Holy Father celebrate? Can you tell us a little bit about his plans?
Well, the Pope will be celebrating Mass here in St. Peter's Basilica tomorrow. That'll be the midnight Mass in the evening, so thousands of people are expected to fill the church. And then on the 25th, he'll be giving his blessing to the city and the world, which he does. You can see just behind me in the center of St. Peter's Basilica, that facade, there's what they call the central loggia, the central balcony. So he goes up there and he's going to invite the world to peace, naming specific nations in the world that are suffering right now from violence. So that's something that he is expected to do in Italian at midday. It's something that people can follow along with also on the television.
Alan, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, Suzanne. Thank you.
More than 60,000 people are seeking safety in Sri Lanka after heavy rains and mudslides. At least 3 people have died and 1,900 homes have been destroyed following 3 days of rain. Hospitals have been filled to the brim. It is monsoon season for the region, but areas that generally avoid the rains have been hit with the storm as well. Pope Francis will visit the country for the first time next month. Friday marks 10 years since one of the biggest natural disasters in recorded history, the 2004 tsunami in the Indian Ocean. The giant waves killed almost 250,000 people in 14 countries. It was triggered by a massive earthquake off of the Indonesian coast. Countries from Indonesia to India to Africa's east coast were hit, leaving shocking scenes of death and destruction. It cost $10 billion in damage to the region, but the cost of life has left an unforgettable mark. The Supreme Court may decide to take up a series of same-sex marriage cases. The justices will review rulings involving several state cases when they meet again in January. If enough members think the court should take action, oral arguments could come in late April. Stocks surged today with the Dow closing above 18,000 for the first time. Investors were excited about a government report this morning that said the economy grew 5% last quarter, one of the best quarters in more than a decade. Federal health officials are recommending an end to the nation's lifetime ban on blood donations from gay and bisexual men. There is a caveat, however. The FDA says it would favor a new policy banning donations from gay men who have had sex in the previous year. This is a 31-year-old policy dating back to the AIDS crisis. Medical groups and gay activists say it's no longer justified. The Food and Drug Administration will formally recommend the change early next year and move to finalize the new guidelines after a period of public comment. Sony Pictures has announced a limited release of The Interview in some theaters starting Thursday. The Seth Rogen comedy caused an international incident with North Korea. A handful of independent theaters will host the film, and North Korea is back online after an internet outage that lasted over 9 hours. It's not clear who's responsible for North Korea's outage, and the State Department today offered little information.
I'd leave it to the North Koreans to talk about if their internet was up, if it wasn't, and why. We're just not going to entertain questions one way or the other about, any of these questions about, possible U.S. responses of any kind.
President Obama promised retaliation for North Korea's alleged cyber attack on Sony executives' email accounts. Coming up, our Susie Pinto takes us to a woodcarver shop in Bethlehem, where Christmas symbols take shape in wood.
And they even have Noah's Ark.
Hi, this is Stephen Gridanis from DCFilms.com, wishing all of our viewers on EWTN News Nightly a very Merry Christmas season.
Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Suzanne LaFranchi. Memorial services were held today for two people who died in the siege in Sydney, Australia. 34-year-old Tori Johnson was the manager at the Lint Cafe where the attack occurred. 38-year-old Katrina Dawson was a lawyer and mother of three. She was killed as the standoff ended in a shootout. Australia's Prime Minister briefed reporters today saying intelligence officials believe terror threats against his country are still ongoing.
An attack is likely. We don't know when and how an attack may come, but we do know that there are people with the intent and the capability to carry out further attacks.
Australia has been dealing with a spat of Islamic terror plots in recent months. The man who took hostages in Sydney last week was a self-styled cleric. He was killed in the final moments of the standoff. Journalists were on some of the front lines of history this year, and several paid with their lives. That's the word from the Committee to Protect Journalists in their annual report out today. The group says at least 60 died on the job or because of their work. About 1/4 were international reporters covering another country's conflict. But most are local journalists who don't have an option to leave troubled areas. Syria, Iraq, and Ukraine were some of the deadliest regions for 2014. At least 2 Americans, James Foley and Stephen Sotloff, are on that list. The Committee to Protect Journalists is investigating another 18 journalist deaths this year. EWTN News Nightly is grateful to our military service members. They are now less than 15,000 of them deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's down from 180,000 when President Obama took office. For the holidays, we wanted to know how our men and women in uniform are doing and how we can help. Lieutenant Colonel Eric Egland is founder and president of Troops Need You, a nonprofit that mobilizes Americans at home to support troops overseas. First, welcome and thank you for your time during the busy holiday season.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne.
Tell us why you founded Troops Need You. I mean, you know firsthand, having served in Iraq, that this can be a tough time of year for troops.
Definitely. Yeah, I was on the ground in Iraq twice and Afghanistan and Pakistan. That was my life. And one of the things I noticed is that going around those places, working with different units, whether I was an operator or an advisor, is that I saw thousands of care packages laying around gathering dust. And then I saw the troops needed things like mission critical equipment that they couldn't get through the bureaucracy for various ways. So I thought, wow, with all the time, energy, and money that people were putting into those care packages, why don't we buy the equipment that they need to do their mission and come home safely? And then we later expanded a few years after that into the home front. Hey, these healing warriors and their families are trying to move forward with their lives. That's their new mission, and they need some help to do that. And there's some gaps in what they have available to them. So let's have the American people fill those gaps. It kind of carries on that American tradition of citizens making a difference.
That's great.
All the way back to the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, what kinds of support do you provide, especially during the holidays, Colonel?
Sure. So during the holidays, the combat missions don't stop. So we're continuing to provide the things we provide all year, things like night vision optics, infrared hunting cameras, things that help the troops see who's moving around their perimeter at night. Those things have been very helpful. We've had some incredible success stories where those have actually helped save lives and stop rocket attacks. But also on the holidays, like you said, Suzanne, that's an especially hard time for the folks healing at home. So we provided over 200 gourmet Thanksgiving meals delivered to the doorstep of healing warrior families. And it's especially hard because a lot of those troops don't have the money to go out to a fancy dinner. Usually their wives are their caretakers, so they're so busy working and helping take care of the wounded husband that they don't have time to spend a couple days baking and making a wonderful meal, and they don't want to go out because it's hard to organize all the the wheelchair and all the logistics that go along with moving. So to have a gourmet meal delivered to their doorstep just means the world to them. And then our supporters take the time to actually handwrite notes of faith and encouragement on placemats that we deliver with the meals.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. I just wanted to ask you this because you did touch on it. Troops Need You has a spiritual foundation. Love Thy Neighbor is a central Christian calling. So what can we as Americans do, and how important, what's it make them feel like for citizens to stand up and help at this time?
Oh, we get tears. It means so much. Like you said, this is a ministry for me, something I do as a volunteer, and it's about applying love thy neighbor, the gospel admonition. And I've been in the military for a couple decades, and so those are my neighbors. And so it's wonderful that it enables the American people to directly support troops in a very personal, meaningful way. And so that's why it's great. We have tears. Just today, we have new requests coming in for Christmas presents for troops to provide for their kids because they don't have the money for them, or groceries because they literally have no food in their refrigerator due to high medical costs, or troops that are deployed and they're getting these medical patches that the doctor says, hey, we need these, but they can't get them anymore because of bureaucracy and red tape. So we're providing these things right now.
All right, great. Thank you for your good work, and we wish you a Merry Christmas. Thank you so much, Colonel.
Merry Christmas, Suzanne. Thank you.
Wildlife lovers have a new way to get up close and personal with the elusive creatures of the forest. Hobbyists are hunting mountain lions with photography instead of guns. Our Mark Irons has more.
On the hunt for elusive creatures of the western wilderness. But these outdoor enthusiasts don't shoot to kill. Instead, they shoot photographs with cameras, jerry-rigged to flash when animals trigger motion sensors.
You get to see the animal's normal life and their normal behavior, and they're not affected at all by our presence.
Joanna Turner has paired her tracking abilities with French-born Dennis Calais' photography skills to capture some playful and intimate moments. A pair of bear cubs wrestling, a bobcat rolling on a sunny rock like a lazy house cat, and a mother mountain lion nursing her two kittens.
You can hear purring, and they nurse for a while, and then they all nap together, and it's the most incredible thing.
Turner and Calais and their friend Robert Martinez spend their weekends hiking into the forest to check on remote cameras. Each rig cost about $1,000 in parts.
Got a 1855mm lens. This is a wireless trigger the flash because the bear cannot cooperative very much.
The hobby is thriving here in the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains, just a short drive from the Los Angeles suburbs.
That's one big cat.
Just like real hunters, camera trappers are obsessed with big game. The king of these mountains is the cougar. This is about as close as you'll get to one.
I have lions on video that are only like 10 minutes from where people park their cars. It's amazing. They use the whole entire wilderness.
But oftentimes, it's the smaller animals, taking up more than their 15 minutes of fame, using up battery power and memory.
This is a very well-lit, expensive squirrel picture.
I start watching them and I'll see squirrel after squirrel after squirrel. And I start cursing squirrels and wish they were never around.
There's also a lot of trial and error.
Making sure the focus is right, making sure the batteries work, fixing the damage to the cables that the bear keeps pulling the cables off and breaking them so the flashes don't go off.
But when it works,
I get goosebumps. He always gave me goosebumps when I see a lion. Oh my God!
It makes all of their hard works
beautiful.
And squirrel shots worth the effort.
Oh my God, it's perfect, Dennis.
Holy God.
Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
Up next, and one city's Christmas tree is finding a following, even if it leaves a little to be desired.
You know what? If you can't be in Bethlehem, if you can't be at home with your family, New York's not a bad place to be for Christmas. And from the Archdiocese of New York, from St. Patrick's Cathedral, I wish all of you a very blessed Christmas.
Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Suzanne LaFranchi. The little town of Bethlehem is bogged down with a big city problem, traffic jams filling its small streets. It's also clogging up this area where tradition says Jesus was born. The city is considering digging a tunnel under Manger Square to help pedestrians cross. Bethlehem is a transit point between the northern and southern parts of the West Bank. It's sandwiched on three sides by other towns, which only compounds the congestion problem. During the Pope's trip to the Holy Land earlier this year, our Susie Pinto visited with a woodcarver in Bethlehem whose family has been recreating nativity scenes for hundreds of years.
When you think of Bethlehem, you think of the nativity scene. And here at Christmas House, they have many, but they also have lots of other items. They've got rosaries, bowls, crosses, and they even have Noah's Ark.
My name is Jack Aman. My family is one of the Roman Catholic Latin families who lived in Bethlehem for hundreds of years. From the period of the Crusaders, they came as stone builders, and they settled and they start to do things to sell pilgrims. We bring the wood from farmers who do pruning for their trees, and we dry this wood and we make out of it nativity sets by using different type of models and tools. Olive wood is a very nice wood. For this they carve it for the last generations. So I am not even more than the third or fourth generation, for hundreds years generation doing this business. Since we are in Bethlehem, everybody have a dream to have a nativity set or a Christmas ornaments from the birthplace of Jesus. And this is, of course, what is keeping us producing and sending all over the world our products. Pope to visit us, it's a very big visit, and he gave us a very, we are now a very small community in Palestine, and he gave us a big interest. He said he wants to pray with the Christian Palestinian in Bethlehem. And this gives me the feeling that we are important people for the Pope.
The city of Reading, Pennsylvania has a Charlie Brown Christmas tree this year. It's a little thin, but people there say it may hold greater symbolism for their town. Let's be honest, this is no one's idea of a perfect Christmas tree.
The tree is ugly, and the city could have did a better job.
Like many cities, Reading, Pennsylvania puts up an official tree each year. Back in November, the city tried getting one from a local Christmas tree farm, but the ground was too wet. So workers went to this local ballpark and cut down a 50-footer. The scraggly spruce drew immediate comparisons to the tree in a certain beloved Christmas special.
We need Charlie Brown and Snoopy over here because this tree belongs to them.
After much debate, city officials decided to keep the tree and to play up the Charlie Brown theme. They wrapped it in a blue blanket and adorned it with a single red ball.
Things happen, and so now this is our tree, and we're going to embrace it.
Not everyone agrees. Some say the tree's an unwelcome reminder of Reading's deep poverty.
Everybody knows Reading's poor. It looks even more poor with that tree, especially for the holidays and for all these little children that want to see a nice tree.
Others believe the tree symbolizes Reading itself. A little threadbare, sure, but full of potential.
Merry Christmas, Reading. It's about really loving things and embracing them in a way that has a deeper spiritual meaning. This tree carries its own little spirit. It has its own little voice now.
And so a few days before Christmas, the community will come together to decorate the tree, just like the kids in that classic holiday special. The city's also asking participants to pledge service hours or bring items to donate to people in need. All because of a real-life Charlie Brown Christmas tree. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and watch again on EWTN's YouTube page. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, I'm Suzanne LaFranchi. Thanks for watching tonight. We leave you with some images of an exhibit in Rome featuring 100 nativity scenes. Merry Christmas, good night, and God bless.